Well, hello again, friends and family. I'm recording this week's video on the week of my birthday in 2021. And I learned this month that June is a month of Seniors Appreciation. And 700 Club Canada, a TV program that was started in the United States by Pat Robertson, has a Canada branch and a daily television program. They are showing appreciation for seniors this month on their TV program. And on Monday of this week, Diane was interviewed on their program. And as we watched it, we were shocked to see that our adopted daughter, Melinda, was the one who introduced it and introduced Diane, her mother. And this is what it was like.
What I appreciate about my mom, Diane Estabrooks, my adoptive mother, is that all my life I've seen a woman who is consistently and with such grace and kindness served behind the scenes. My mom was never one who wanted the glory or the accolades, but she just served faithfully wherever God asked of her to serve. And so whether that was fostering Filipino babies, to supporting and partnering with my dad in the work of missionary work in the Philippines and Singapore, to being an ESL teacher, to knitting toques for babies that were in need, to whenever somebody at the church was needing support and help, my mom was the first one to lend a hand and support. And so, Mom, I so appreciate you. I so appreciate your love, your great baking, your homemade pierogies, your incredible sewing abilities, your knitting abilities, just the way that you love your family and ensure that we stay connected together. So thank you, Mom, for your love, and thank you for you and Dad for adopting me in the Philippines. Forever grateful and love you so much.
Oh, that's so good. And now I'm pleased to welcome to the 700 Club Canada, Diane Estabrooks. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you today. And I just want to hear a little bit of your story. You and your husband have been missionaries in the Philippines and Singapore. Tell us what your role was in those years.
Well, in the Philippines, we lived on the Far East Broadcasting compound with many other missionary families and staff. And we had two small children at the time, Tim and Tanya. And I assisted Paul with a radio program called Operation Friendship, which introduced Christian young people from different countries to each other. And it was sort of an Asian pen pal program. Listeners would write letters to us, introducing themselves, and we read these letters over the air. We later learned that a couple from South Asia who were introduced as pen pals actually later became friends and eventually got married. I also helped out with another program called Ray of Sunlight, which was a music request program. And then Paul and I were also the English Voices on a Learning English program to Vietnam.
That's amazing.
Besides that, we also had two guest rooms on the compound, and I was the compound hostess who booked these guests into the rooms and billeted them for meals with different missionary families. And just never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. You were a busy woman for sure. Well, when you were in the Philippines too, you adopted Melinda. What led your family to make that decision?
Well, when Paul and I first got married, we often talked about adopting a child someday. We both loved children, and we wanted to give a child from another country a loving home. And the day we arrived in the Philippines, we saw so many children climbing on garbage heaps, scavenging for food. Many of these children were homeless, and we decided then that someday we would adopt a child from the Philippines. And through a missionary friend who had a Bible study with pregnant girls at a home for unwed mothers, I found out that often the babies born were given up for adoption. She invited me to go with her one week, and while she was having the Bible study, I got to visit the nursery and see all the babies. And after the girls gave birth to their baby, they had 3 months to decide whether to keep the baby or give the baby up for adoption. One little baby whose mother decided to keep her was named Melinda. I loved that name and decided that when we adopted our little girl, she would be called Melinda. At that time, none of the babies were available for adoption. So I told the supervisor that the next baby girl that was available, we would love to adopt her. We filled out the application papers, had the home study and the medicals, and were accepted. And about 2 months later, we got the phone call that there was a little bundle for us to come and pick up. And that was our Melinda. She was 7 days old, 5 pounds when we brought her home. We all loved her to pieces. Our little bundle of energy, and she's still a bundle of energy.
She's still
today.
a bundle of energy. You're so
Yes.
right. And what a beautiful story. And you've grown your family, your missionaries, and you found your love for teaching ESL, English as a Second Language, while in Singapore. And you continued to be an ESL teacher when you returned to Canada. So why was that work meaningful to you?
Well, I was an elementary school teacher for 6 years before we went to the Philippines, and I loved it. And when we moved to Singapore, our children went to the Singapore American School, which was very international. A friend who privately tutored students from the school asked me to tutor her students when she went on vacation. And I did so, and I discovered that I loved it. So I submitted my name to the school as an available tutor, and as soon I had my own students. And then some of their mothers asked me to have a class with them during the day to teach them English. And I even tutored one of the fathers for a few months. Most of the families I tutored were from Israel. And we became very good friends during this time, the 3 years in Singapore. And when we returned to Canada, I took courses to receive my certificate to be able to teach English as a second language in the public school system in Ontario. And from that time on, I've taught ESL to children from grades 1 to 5 until I retired. And then I also volunteer taught ESL to adults at West Park Church here in London before COVID. And I hope to do so again when we can again meet in the classroom at the church. And having lived in other countries and having to adapt to new cultures, I feel that I'm able to really relate to my students and their parents, and as they are trying to adapt to our culture and learning a new language too. So I really do love teaching ESL to both children and adults, and I am blessed and fulfilled by it. I just love it.
Well, you are a bundle of energy and have lived your life on mission. But now that you're retired and you're in your 80s, well done. What gives you joy and meaning in your life each day?
Well, I love studying my Bible every morning. I love being connected to my grandchildren, my 11 grandchildren. And I'll be glad when we finally can get together again and enjoy hugs instead of being Zoomed on.
Right, I agree.
Yes. And for as far as encouragement for other seniors, I would suggest just use whatever time and energy you have to serve the Lord through ministry to your family and to others. Try to keep in touch with friends by phoning or emailing. So many seniors are lonely during these times, and a call from a friend is so uplifting. Just try to keep active doing the things that you love to do. God can use you in many ways.
Well, that's a good word, Diane, and I thank you for that encouragement. And God bless you and your family. And thank you for all the ways you demonstrate your love for Jesus.
Thank you very much.
2 days later, on Wednesday of my birthday week, 700 Club Canada also interviewed me. And again, our daughter Melinda did the introduction.
What I really appreciate about my dad, Paul Estabrooks, my adoptive father, is just his courage and willingness to go wherever God asks of him. And whether that's to be a missionary in the Philippines and Singapore doing radio, to smuggling Bibles in restricted countries, to serving the persecuted church, and to loving his family well. My dad has done it with such grace and kindness and consistency and commitment. I'm also so inspired and appreciate that my dad, even in his late 70s, continues to pivot and learn new things as he continues to serve God, doing podcasts and YouTube videos and writing books and doing online seminars. My dad has showed me that you're never too old to learn something new and to continue to do the work of sharing the good news with the world. And that's what I so appreciate about my dad. And I also so appreciate that him and my mom adopted me from the Philippines. I will be forever grateful. And I love you, Dad. I so appreciate you today.
That was so honoring. And Paul has spent his life as an international missionary, and what a life he has led. Let's welcome Paul to the show. Well, welcome, Paul. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's good to be with you.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I was fascinated by your life and especially your passion for missions. So what first sparked that passion? Where did that come from? And how did you know that that's what you were supposed to do with your life?
Well, I think it started with my mom. My dad was a pastor, and I grew up in the church. And my mom had us read through the Bible every year, 4 chapters a day, and also gave us all these missionary books to read, like the Jungle Doctor series I read as a kid, David Livingstone's life, even Pearl Buck from China. And I never realized how much China would later have a part to play in my life and ministry. So that was the beginning. And then I went to Bible college. And can you believe the name of the Bible college was London College of Bible and Missions? And so missions was the focus in the middle 60s. So that was, and then Diane and I, when I went to university afterwards to do some graduate studies, we went to Urbana, the missionary conference for young people in college. And Dr. Bowman from Far East Broadcasting Company was there. I had done my graduate studies in mass communications, and I worked at the television station in London, Ontario here in those days. And we were challenged by Dr. Bowman to consider to give our lives to mission, and he gave us a challenge to join their team, which we, after a lot of prayer, decided this was what God wanted us to do. So we ended up in the Philippines.
Oh, I love that. Well, because it was really a combination of key influences in your life and key experiences that you were just open to saying, God, whatever you have for me, I'm in. And I love that. And so you've had some pretty remarkable experiences. And one in particular, you've called it Project Pearl. You actually wrote a whole book about it that our viewers can go on our website and find more information about. But what was that about, and how were you able to pull that off?
Well, after spending this 1970s with Far East Broadcasting Company in Manila, we joined Brother Andrew's ministry, the Brother Andrew of God's Smuggler fame. His office was also in Manila, where we were already living, and they invited me to join them. And just at the time I joined them in 1979, we had a request from China. One network of Christians in southern China wanted 1 million Bibles, wow. Chinese Bibles, wow. And they wanted them all at one time, all at one place. Well, even a small Bible, and the Bible was like this size, as you can see, it's not a huge Bible. That's a full Bible in Chinese. If 1 million of those weigh 232 tons, okay, we're talking tons. Wow. Pretty hard to do in suitcases, which is what we had done up to that point.
Right.
And so it was a project of prayer. Let me tell you, we had no idea how we were going to do this. God brought us the right people, a captain, a missionary in the Philippines who'd been an old sea captain. And he had the idea of getting a tugboat to pull a barge, a specially built barge, built in the Philippines, that would hold 232 one-ton blocks, waterproof wrap blocks of Chinese Bibles in cardboard boxes. There were 90 of them in a cardboard box, which also were wrapped in waterproof wrapping. And on the night of June 18, which is coming up to 40 years next week, we landed on a beach where the believers told us to come, just south of the city of Santo in southern China. And we offloaded in 2 hours, from 9 o'clock at night till 11 o'clock at night. We offloaded those 232 one-ton blocks. They would float, even with a man standing on them. There were still 2 inches of freeboard. And we pulled them with little rubber boats into the shore. There were hundreds, possibly thousands of Chinese Christian men waiting on the beach for us, and they came out in the water up to their neck. We threw them the lines. They pulled up those blocks onto the beach, opened them with shears, and then handed the cardboard boxes, daisy chain style, up the beach to vehicles that they actually had to take them away, as well as storage units, because you can just imagine how many Bibles that was and what a challenge it would be even for them. It took them 5 years to distribute what it took us 2 hours to drop off.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And you actually wrote about that. You have a book, right, that tells that story.
Yes.
And
yes, it's called Night of a Million Miracles.
Right. And so if you're watching and you'd like to read that story, find out more of the details, it's an inspiring story. You can go to our website and we'll direct you there. But I'm amazed at this concept. I've thought about this. When you get to heaven, there's going to be someone there who says, because you were willing to pull off what really seemed like an audacious plan and dream, I am here too. And I love that. I love your heart and your passion and your courage to do something that was really outside of the box. And so, thank you for sharing that story with us today. And it is Seniors Appreciation Month. And so what advice would you give for other seniors who might be watching, who want to get involved in missions at this stage in life?
Well, the best thing to do is to get informed and keep informed on what's happening around the world, because there still is a lot going on, even with COVID, and even in spite of COVID. It's amazing. Every month I put out a monthly report to people who follow me on different social media called God at Work in Our World Today. And I have no trouble filling a whole page every month with incredible things that are happening. But for seniors, we who are older have more time on our hands now than we did when we were working and raising our kids when they were young, even though we've got lots of grandkids to work with now. But I think prayer is one of the most incredible things that seniors can be involved in. Brother Andrew, who was one of my mentors, often said, prayer is not part of the spiritual battle. Prayer is the spiritual battle. And, seniors have more time on their hands to do that. You only want to do that if you really know what to pray about. And that's what I suggest that seniors do, is to keep informed. I love following websites like David Platt, who wrote the book Radical. And he is very big on unreached people groups. And there are many other sites as well where you can learn about the unreached peoples of this world and pray that God would lead someone there to tell those people the gospel of Jesus.
That is so powerful. So become aware and pray. I love that. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It was just a real pleasure. And so thank you.
My book, Night of a Million Miracles, is available at Open Doors Canada on their website, opendoorsca.org. And on that website, there is a bookstore and has my other books as well as Night of a Million Miracles. I'll put the URL down in the note box under this video on YouTube.